The current conflict in Myanmar is grabbing headlines and attracting attention worldwide. What happened and why, and can it be resolved? We're discussing all this and more coming up on PlatForum right now. Sparks started flying late August when the Burmese government doubled gas prices and increased natural oil prices by 500%. Civilians and then monks quickly took to the streets in pro-democracy movements, protesting the military dictator government that's been in place since 1962. Welcome to PlatForum, and I'm your host, Nancy Chin. Before we start discussing tonight's events, I'd like to introduce our guests for the evening.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Wilbanks. I am a freshman and a business cinema major.
James White, I'm a senior and I'm a PR major.
Hi, I'm Sharon Tagarobi. I am a sophomore and a double major in broadcast journalism and international relations.
My name's Ron Osborne, and I'm a PhD student in political science.
All right, thank you for joining us tonight, guys. And even before we started tonight's show, there was a lot of discussion over what to call this. Is it Myanmar, or is it Myanmar, or is it Burma? What exactly should we refer to it as tonight?
Well, I think that we should call it Burma for the remainder of the show. The reason being that the military junta that's now in power, they basically changed the name to Myanmar in '89 without any authorization by the legislature and without any democratic process. And so this is the issue of the name is quite important for people involved with this question with the democracy movement. The democracy people are saying no. They didn't have a right to change it. We want to call it Burma. So different governments are calling it different things, but it's a political question, and it kind of reveals where you stand.
Well, before we even started this show tonight, when we were finding guests, we had a little bit of trouble because two of our guests they had family in Burma, and they actually said that they would fear coming onto the show because of safety concerns. Now, they were afraid that the Burmese government would watch our show, surprising to anyone because I don't know if anyone does watch our show, but they were afraid that they would come on our show and there would be concerns for their safety back home. Is this level of censorship or safety, does that concern any of you? Is that shocking?
It's absolutely concerning. Censorship is always concerning, but as far as shocking, this is a country that has violently put down protests in the past. They just executed between 3,000 and 6,000 nonviolent Buddhist monks. So I don't know if it's necessarily an unexpected concern.
Right, like what can you expect
I
from
wouldn't
the
go so far as to say shocking. I mean, it's
just sad.
It is what it is. It's
sad,
unfortunate
exactly.
that they're that oppressive to their people, but
Sorry, I was just going to say, actually, a couple of years ago, I was living in Thailand, and I had a chance to actually go across the border into Burma. And the thing that I've never had this kind of experience anywhere before. The moment I went across the border, this guy basically began to follow me everywhere. I was just going into this small town across to the other side, and he was a secret, not so secret, police agent of the junta, and his responsibility was anytime a foreigner comes through this border checkpoint, you basically just stay with them. And so it was really weird to have a guy, talking to me, following me around. I was asking him, please, why don't you just leave? I just want to, experience Burma for myself. No, I have to be with you. So it is a repressive police state, no question about it.
Why is it that it's just now attracting the attention of the world? Why didn't people pay attention earlier, if it really is so oppressive?
I think the involvement, the religious factor of the Buddhist monks in the protest makes it a lot more, I don't want to say newsworthy because all violent government oppression is newsworthy, but more attention getting in the headlines because you have this sect of people who are following Aung San Suu Kyi, the democratically elected leader of Burma, and she subscribes to Gandhi's principle of satyagraha, the peaceful non-compliance. And so you have these people who are non-violently protesting. It's built into their religion, a code of non-violence, and then you have this government that's responding as if they were an angry, violent mob, executing them, carting them off in prisons. So I think that there's a lot more sympathy generated for this type of scenario than there have been in other repressive government acts in the past.
You know, Nancy, another thing that I think has been very important has been that there have been really dramatic images coming out of the country. And especially in the first few days, first week or so of the protests, you know, there were just powerful, powerful scenes of these monks so courageously going to the streets. And people all around the world are seeing that for the first time. Now they have basically shut down internet. They're really shutting it down, so we're not really seeing the images anymore. And I think it's going to be hard to keep the level of interest up now that people don't have that visual reminder, that graphic view of what's taking place in the country.
Yeah, I think another thing, I mean, it's probably not what's been generating a lot of the sympathy for the region, but you know, something that has popped up has been the issue of oil and gas prices and all that kind of stuff, which is always a big issue here. But it's kind of, I guess it's sad in a way that gets overlaid, you know, over all of these other deeper issues over there, and they start bringing it up and actually talking about it in the news instead of, you know, the Buddhist monks and the religious conflict that's going on there.
Right, and going back to what Jonathan was saying, I think that from a journalist standpoint, what's happening now in Burma is more newsworthy because, I mean, there are protests everywhere. Like, as a journalist, you can't cover everything that's happening, you know, but you look for what's different about this protest, what makes this unique. And it is, I think, I agree that the religious factor, you know, that's something new. And again, the powerful images, that makes a huge impact as far as broadcast news as well.
Another thing that I think makes this significant and that's been getting a lot of attention is China's role in all of this, because people have been, at least from the media standpoint, people have been saying, oh, you know, China's going to pressure the Burmese government to back off with the aggression. China will take care of it. India will take care of it. But largely due to their oil interest in Burma, they basically said, we don't want to anger the Burmese government. We're going to step out of this. China partnered with Russia to block UN Security Council action to stop the violence in Burma. There is a lot of this is because of a large natural gas deposit, the Shui Reserve, which was just uncovered recently. And both China and India are very heavily bidding for it right now. You have Russia, France, Malaysia, all with incredibly, in the U.S., Chevron, with very heavy oil ties there. So that litmus test for China, are you ready to make that commitment to human rights, especially with the 2008 Olympics coming up, public image is such a concern for China? You know, they let those oil interests kind of override that, and I think to the world they've kind of failed that test.
Do you think that people, when dealing with events such as these, look at it from, oh, how can I benefit economically, or do they look at it as in terms of ideologically, like, is this right, or do they just try to make a quick buck as fast as they can?
Which people are you thinking of?
I'm talking about the world generally, but since you brought up China and India, what do you think about China and India's role in this? Do you think that they're going to be on the side of the people or on the side of the government?
Well, I think, you know, when you're talking about states, you know, we sort of talk about them in the abstract. China does this, India does that. You know, there are people in power in these governments, the United States as well, and the only way that they will ever act is if they have a lot of pressure from ordinary people to do something differently, not just in the interests of the corporations, not just in the interests of their military strategic goals. So, you know, the question about what people want is a pretty hard one to answer. I think ordinary people want to see peace in Burma. The only way that's going to happen is if there's a huge amount of pressure on governments to start changing their policies.
At the same time, though, you have a plain, I guess, devil's advocate here. Whenever gas prices spike, you have angry constituents all over the country writing their congressmen saying, take care of oil prices. So whenever any country with democratically elected leaders faces the possibility of cutting off a source of oil due to angering that government, the politicians in power then have to weigh what's the bigger risk here, the backlash from possibly higher oil costs or the backlash from these violent protests that this government put down. And so it's kind of a catch-22 for a lot of the people in power.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And also, if you look at countries like U.S. and China and, you know, we were talking about India, I think that a main reason why these countries